You may think that you are fine, but tell that to a doctor of the mind, who there alongside lightning bolts administers 20,000 volts. So don't trust what's on the poster. It's Pibbles playing Planet Coaster.
Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter. And welcome back to our Halloween park series here in Planet Coaster 2. Now, we've got in the last two episodes, we have been building this, our lovely little spooky farm area of the park. And today, we get to move on to something new. Now, just like with that the previous area, I've sorted a little bit of infrastructure on it from the get-go. So, before we get in, let's turn on some lights. Yes, so welcome into this. This is the area we're going to be using for the next area. And, I'm sure I will get into a little bit of what this area is in the time-lapse. So, without further ado, let's roll that time-lapse. Yes, hello, it's me with another time-lapse here in Planet Coaster 2 in our Spookton Scream Park. Now, as I say every episode, today we're doing something interesting, and today it is just as interesting as per usual, because we are starting this new area. And I can tell you that this new area is themed around a little bit of a mental hospital, sort of an old asylum, classic spooky horror type stuff, which is quite fun. And we are starting today, like any good day, by building a roller coaster. And we are using the bike and sidecar model here, mostly because I wanted an element in the middle that I couldn't do if I used a different model. Otherwise, the model that I wanted to use was the Intamin, the Intamin Blitz model that we've got in the game. I believe it's the Altimax Raid, and I wanted to use that, but I couldn't use that because obviously that didn't have the element that I wanted. So instead, I'm having to freehand any and all inversions, which you will know that coaster building isn't my forte. So the way that I decided to do this was by placing down the inversions, using the raid itself, then lining up the inversion as we're doing here, and literally copying it little bit by little bit. Now, this would be a very strenuous process if I showed you every little bit of this that I was doing. So instead, I don't do every single inversion, but I show you this inversion because it's the first one. So I thought might as well. And you'll have noticed that today is a little bit of a shorter episode. That is mostly because of there is only so much building that I can do in this game in one sitting, especially for a project that was as slightly monotonous and mind-bending as this. I kind of had to cut today's session short by popping in and just sorting something different at the end of this episode, but we'll sort that when we get there. But first, you will see me here with this inversion. So, what was the inspiration behind this roller coaster? I know that's always a question one has to ask themselves. So, the inspiration behind this coaster was, I had this idea of the way that I wanted it to start, and I had another idea that I wanted to execute, and that's why I'm doing it. And it is the first launch that we have just put in, and I also wanted a drop track segment, and I could see how these would play out in my mind. And while they aren't perfect, considering the limitations of the game, they're pretty damn good with what I had in mind. So that is where this whole ride started. But what was the main kind of idea behind it? And we'll get onto that the further through these episodes we get, because I fully name it by the third episode of this area. But part of this was inspired by the Smiler at Alton Towers, in that, you know, it shares a somewhat similar theme, and kind of the ideas of inversions. I know that the Smiler doesn't invert or anything, doesn't launch, or anything like that, but it does have the theme of, obviously, the Marmalizer, which is kind of this whole thing, and the Smiler itself, which is the government program from the Ministry of Joy to make everybody happy or whatever. I'm not super up to date with the lore, but that'll give you an idea. And again, I just wanted to have that sort of idea of well, not a government facility in this case, but a facility where you know, people are going and kind of being administered kind of care and whatever in kind of this slightly twisted way, which is quite fun. And again, it was a style of roller coaster I hadn't really tried before. You know, I've always played around with sort of making roller coasters in this game that, you know, don't invert or don't kind of do all of this, do all of that. But this was my first time really kind of getting in and playing around with a coaster that wasn't meant to invert, but that I was making invert. And what I can say is thank God for the ability to exceed track limits in this game. It was so useful. And yes, you can see me here just coming in and getting rid of that, playing around just to try and make something that works. And you can see me here playing around with a couple of other different elements, seeing what we could put in here and there. But yes, so the other half of this that I should probably tell you about is the way we go about theming it. So I wanted the interior, I wanted it to be sort of a hybrid between a dark ride and a roller coaster. So this is very much an indoor coaster, and it all kind of sits within this building, and it has a very distinct style of kind of everything being sterile, slightly too clean. And the one major thing that we've got throughout this that kind of remains consistent is doors. When we get kind of to the process of actually sort of having this coaster done, you will see that there are a lot of doors inside, but that's purely because I had the idea of what I wanted, and I ran with it. Now you can see me here just putting in that drop track. I believe we do move the position of it, and getting that into a switch track, which again we move the position of. But I had another idea for an element that I wanted, which was this window at the front of the institution that I wanted the coaster to sort of. I'd played around with this in the sandbox in a completely different thing. In a completely different park. Sorry, I'm losing myself here. I've got a park that I call the testing ground, where I'm testing a lot of these ideas that I've got for this park, and indeed any other park. And one of the main ideas that I did have was that I wanted a coaster to sort of have this have this sort of switch track and spike, but not spike in a traditional sense. So the way that I wanted the spike to be done is that I wanted the coaster to invert before kind of coming up on a curved spike before dropping back in. It makes more sense when we get into it, but there we go. And we're starting here with a little bit of the interior theming, because that is a big part of this coaster. You know, you can't really do an indoor coaster without having the indoors. And yeah, we have bits all over for this, and I had ideas of what I wanted the interior of this to look like. And you can see me here getting in these resort balconies and stuff. And when I said we were going to have a lot of doors, I meant it. So you can see me here starting to get these doors in. And I really like them. I really like the way that they look, especially with these lights above them. So I put these lights in and I loop them, and you can just see me kind of copying across this little section of door, and then copying it across to the other side. Just because, you know, I thought it would be really cool to kind of go through these corridors full of these doors, and I think what we end up with ultimately works quite well for what it is. And coming in and putting this floor in as a roof, it just works so well. And you see me now coming in, and yeah, it looks really nice. Now coming in, we are starting on the layout once again, and we are coming back and sorting this sort of inclined helix. Now, again, this was another idea that I had to change slightly when I got to the process of actually theming it up, but there we go. And there is the switch in our footage. I did kind of turn off the footage and just work a bit off camera, because it would have just been a long process of me trial and erroring it, and then you're seeing me here very much in a place of I'm done with the roller coaster for today, let's do something else. So you can see me here putting in the first of our 2 flat rides for this place. It is a kickflip, and I know what the name is in hindsight, but I don't know if I can tell you quite yet, because that may end up being a thing later on. But yes, we are getting this in with a queue line, and yeah, so, you know, the main attraction of this area is the coaster that sits inside the asylum and kind of flows around and has all this stuff inside it. But, you know, I thought having an area that's just that would be a little bit boring, so I've got these, I've got 2 flat rides on the outside that kind of tie into the theme of these twisted experiments. And this is the first of them. And you can see me here coming in and placing sort of all of these cogs and cogs and wheels and stuff on the outside to sort of make it feel a little bit more like almost a twisted machine that one might use to do some sort of convoluted therapy on somebody or something. And yeah, you can see me getting these cogs on the outside, just up the spine, and when this is all spinning, it looks really nice, I can tell you that for free now. And I was toying with the idea of having more, but I just like the way that this looks. It works so well for what it is, and I can't complain about it too much. Now, coming in to put a couple more bits and pieces down, we start off with these belt drives which go up the sides like that, and I wanted a lot of kinetic moving parts for this ride. You know, I thought it looks nice as it is, but a lot of the spectacle comes from these moving parts. So by putting these all in, it kind of looks quite nice. And obviously on the back as well, while you can't see it from the front, you'll see it from the queue line, and actually putting that piston in there just looks really, really nice. Adding some wheels down the side, again, just to look quite nice. They all spin, perfect. And then I came across the saw blades and went, well, I have to now, don't I? So we end up putting a layer of saw blades down the back here, just because, you know, when the ride is stationary, it kind of hides anything like this, so that, you know, when you actually get the ride gets emotion, it moves and you're like, ooh, saw blades, nice. But yes, and where would this ride be if we didn't theme up the footprint of it as well? So putting in some boilers and some more machinery parts like these. Again, it just looks quite industrial, which was the whole sort of point of the ride. And getting these little bits in here like this is quite fun. And then moving in to get some pipes and some luggage in. You know, I thought anything that sort of looks like it fits, I'll put down. And ultimately we end up with these rope spools because, you know, they could pass for electricity or stuff like that. We go for a clock on the back that we get rid of. And then we go for some of these wooden crates, which do look quite nice kind of out here behind the ride itself. And coming in here now quickly, we do toy around with placing some more bits and pieces, and we end up with these flywheels, which we just sit down there, so there's something kinetic on the back. Now moving over to the fairy tale theme, what else do we need but, of course, a royal gazebo. Now I can tell you for free that we do not go for that because it just doesn't look good. I maybe would have kept with it if we could change the colours, but we can't, which is annoying because it's big and it would have worked for the entrance of this ride, I think, just about. You know, where else am I going to use a gazebo this big? But ultimately I couldn't change the colours on it, so I had to leave it behind, which is sad, but there we go. I'm moving back on to... yeah, for some reason I keep trying to make this gazebo work, but I can't change the colours, and there we go, like I said. Stop trying to make it work, Peter. Now, coming in here, just adding a couple of pillars in that don't quite look right. We play around with a couple of things for the entrance to see what sticks, ultimately. You know, it's a very convoluted process, this. Just trialing and erroring. I think that is my favourite phrase for all of this. It is just trial and error. And moving over to the good old sorcery theme. You know, what else but the sorcery fences? They sort of have this wrought iron feel that I thought would be perfect for a place like this, and I was just waiting for a place to use them. And I was going to use them on the outside of the coaster, but obviously we haven't got that finished yet. I can't remember if I do anything off camera between this episode and the next one, but if I do, I will let you know in the next episode. But for now, we are just literally sticking these fences down here as the outside of this ride, and, you know, ultimately it looks quite good what we get up to. But yes, I am a fan of how this area is turning out already, and I can already tell you for free that I really like how it ultimately ends up at the end of the process. You know, do I still prefer Pumpkin Patch Farm? Possibly, but I can't deny that this is cool. Like, this is just really cool. And yeah, it is just a really fun time kind of getting this in and making everything look slightly Victorian, slightly run down, slightly all of this, all of that, but a different kind of rundown to all the other stuff that we've done, because everything we've done up to this point has been very kind of townhouse or farm or all of that stuff. But here we get to do sort of Victorian manor. And I believe we're coming up to the end of the time lapse, so I will see you in real time. Okay, welcome back to real time. We've done a little bit in this episode, and I can't complain too much about it. Of course, we have the start of our lovely roller coaster for this land started. And we have built this, our lovely brand new flat ride, which is fun. So if you have enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like, subscribe, possibly even comment if I'm lucky enough, and I will see you within the next episode. Ta-ta, roll that outro.